Some surprising news in the Boise housing market here this past month. What's up? It's Benj here with Triple Cord Real Estate, and in this video, I have a full market update for you. All the facts and figures. I made a bunch of slides to help illustrate all of the numbers as well. I also did some research to see where the Boise housing market sits in relation to the national average for the housing market across the United States. And then at the end, I also have some thoughts on what might be in store for us in the coming months in light of the surprising inflation news that we just got several days ago. So be sure to stick around for that. So let's jump right into it. First of all, as I said, the median price rose last month here in Ada County. So we're at $561,500. That's a 4% increase from the month before. Year over year, we're at a plus 5.16%. And a couple notable points to take away from this. First of all, we still have not seen any year over year declines in the median price here in Ada County. The last time we saw that was in 2014. Since the peak, we're down about 6.77%. That was back in May, where we topped out at $602,250. Last month, we did see fewer listings, though. We're down about 11.32% as compared to September. And this is the fewest listings that we've seen since 2022. Now, let me break down the median price for you just a bit. Last month, about 68% of all of the homes that were sold in Ada County were resales, so they were existing homes. About 32%, 31.9% of the homes were new construction. The median for existing homes topped out in May at $586,750. And since then, we've come down about 15% for resales for existing homes. What's interesting about that, though, is that last month, October, the median price stayed the same, didn't go down any. So that's the first time that we have not seen a decrease in the median for existing homes. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next several months to see if we've actually reached the bottom and we might be swinging back up, or if we might see some more price decreases. In the new home sector, the median price peaked in June at $690,000. And since then, we've come down only about 4.71% from the peak. The MSI also was down this past month. That's the month's supply of inventory. In September, we had 2.96 months of inventory on the market. And this past month, we finished October with 2.77 months. Now, that's not because we saw an increase in sales. Sales actually were down about 4.29% as compared to September. And overall, year over year, we're about 32% less in total volume of sales here in Ada County. So here's a graph that illustrates what has been happening here in Ada County with the month's supply of inventory. You can see that since January, we definitely have seen a steep rise in inventory. But have a look at that number again, and I've showed this in several videos before. Look at where this past month's supply of inventory sits in relation to previous years. The last time we've had this amount of inventory was October of 2015. But look past that. From 2015 back to 2005, when we first started measuring the month's supply of inventory, we never actually had below a 3-month supply of inventory. So again, I don't think what we're seeing here in Ada County is off of the charts. Yes, we've seen an increase in supply, but it's nothing like what we saw back in 2008 where there was 10, 11, 12 months of inventory. Nothing that is really beyond what we need here in Ada County. If anything, this has been good for a market, and this is what we've been asking for actually for the past several years, because our supply here in Ada County has been so incredibly low. The average days on market also ticked up a few days this past month. September, we were at about 38 days, if I remember correctly, and this past month, October, we're up to 42 days. Here's a graph that helps to illustrate that, but again, notice where we're at today in relation to where we were before the pandemic in January of 2020. We're still below that number. Before COVID swept in and changed all of our lives, the average days on market was over 50 days. Now, one thing to note here is that the increase in inventory that we've seen in the past 6 months or so here in Ada County has been synonymous with a decrease in the volume of sales. So what this says to me is that if the sales volume increases back to more normal levels, we're at about 30% lower than we typically have been at this time of the year, I think the inventory gains that we've seen over the past half of a year or so could begin to fade away once again. And if that happens, possibly, again, we're speculating, but that could lead to a renewed increase in prices here in the Boise housing market. So I think this leads to an interesting question. What is it that has actually led to an increase in supply and in turn, a decrease in sales or in demand? And as you can see from this little graphic that I made here, when the demand goes down, obviously the supply goes up. And in turn, when the supply goes up, the prices are going to go down, which is what we've been seeing here in Ada County. So what is it that has actually led to this? Has it been a lack of interest in Boise? I don't think that's the case. I think there's still a strong demand. I know of plenty of people who would love to purchase here in the Boise housing market. Has it been the price? Have the high prices driven all of the potential buyers away from the Treasure Valley? I don't think that's the main factor as well, because when prices were at their all-time high back in May, back in April, March, we saw still tons of buyers here in Boise. The biggest factor that has contributed to the decrease in demand and the increase in supply here in Boise has been the interest rates. Now, if you've been watching the market at all, you know that the interest rate today is really quite high, a lot higher than it was even expected. Have a look at this chart here that shows where the interest rate on average was this past month for a 30-year fixed mortgage. It was over 7% for the entire month. But look at this top number. This was very, very interesting. Just last Thursday, Friday was Veterans Day, so just last Thursday, the interest rate went down more than half of a percentage point in one day. And the reason for that is the inflation report that came out was lower than expected. The CPI for October increased 0.4% for the month, which was about 0.2% less than expected. And that put us at 7.7% inflation year over year, which is lower than where we were in September, and that was 7.9%. Now, I know that doesn't sound like that much, but a 0.4% month over month spread out over the entire year puts you at about 4.8% inflation rate for the year. So that's not the 2% that the Fed likes to see, but overall, that's way better than the 9% or the 8.5% that we saw back in June and July. So this tapering of the inflation rate has led many economists to believe that the inflation may have peaked. Now again, we are all speculating. We don't know the future, but the numbers at least are moving in the right direction. And for that reason, the interest rate for mortgage on a 30-year fixed rate jumped down by more than half of a percentage point just this past week. Now, interest rates tend to follow inflation trends. So if inflation indeed is behind us, the interest rates may have peaked as well, and we may see a decrease in the interest rates in the coming months moving into next year and into next summer. So we'll have to wait to see how it actually all pans out, but from the numbers that we're looking at right now, it seems that the numbers are moving in the right direction. Now, where does Boise sit in regard to the national housing market average? I did a bit of research on that, and actually we're not as bad as the media seems to suggest. Boise's taken some bad press lately in the news. As I said, the median has changed about 6%. We've come down about 6.77% since the peak back in May. That's actually less than the national average, though. The national average has come down about 8.4%. Year over year, we're at 5.16% on the median sales price. That's higher than the year over year median sales price nationally, which is 3.2%. Now, we have seen a bigger decrease in pending sales here in Boise than nationally, Our pending home sales are down about 41% year over year. Nationally, we're at about 34% year over year decrease in pending sales. The month supply of inventory, though, we're also below the national average. 2.77 MSI here in Ada County, 3.3 months nationally. And the total active listings is up about 87% year over year here in Ada County, as compared to about an increase in 10% year over year nationally. So overall, it seems that Boise is slightly above the national average when you take all of the factors into consideration. So let me try and summarize all of this into a couple points. Number one, the downward trend that we've been seeing since May stopped last month. The MSI decreased slightly from 2.96 months down to 2.77 months. That is due because of a decrease in listings, not because of an increase in volume. But it still has gone down, which means that we're not seeing a continued increase in listings and supply on the market. The median also increased slightly last month. The median for resale homes stayed the same. So again, the numbers seem to be suggesting that the market seems to be stabilizing overall here in Ada County. Number two, the soggy housing market that we've seen here in Ada County over the past 6 months or so is almost entirely due to high interest rates. There are some indications, though, in this latest inflation report that just came out that inflation may have peaked. And what that could mean is that the rates may begin to inch downward in the coming months, heading into spring and into early summer. Number three, the Boise housing market is not an exceptional market when compared to the national average. Yes, we have experienced some price drops here. We're down about 15% on resale, about 5% on new homes. Yes, Boise experienced a bigger drop in volume and more listing increases. But if you take the average, the median for Ada County, our prices have not decreased more than the national average. And our month's supply of inventory is below the national average as well. And then number four, it is important to note that the Boise housing market still is favoring buyers. If you're a buyer here in the Treasure Valley, you certainly feel like you have the cards in your hands. But there are some indications that things may be turning. And I think this leads us to the golden question that everybody wants to know. Are we out of the woods yet? And the answer to that is definitely. We'll just have to wait and see. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to stay current with what is happening here in Ada County, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos.